Hello, I'm DevPoodle. Today I'll be showing you how to create a snowfall particle effect. This demo scene was made using the effect and with free assets from kenny.nl. More specifically, the recently updated 3D holiday kit. Links to this scene, the final particle effect, and Kenny's assets are of course all in the description. So let's get into it. Let's begin with an empty 3D scene. First, we need a basic environment node. In the upper toolbar, there's this globe icon. Click it and then press Add Environment to Scene. This will give us a basic world environment to start out with. Open it up in the inspector. Go up here to the provided environment, and then we want to go to the fog tab. We'll enable fog in the scene to make it feel more wintry. Let's make the fog color light gray. Increase the sun scatter to about 0.5, the density to about 0.02, and then decrease sky effect to 0.7. Altogether, this will create a slight fog, but we should still be able to see the whole scene in Skybox. For a basic floor, let's create a new 3D mesh instance and assign it a default cube mesh. Let's go to its scale, unlink it, and then set it to 640 by 1 by 640. This creates a decent enough floor for our purposes. Finally, we can create the particles. This will be a GPU Particles 3D node, which we will rename to Snow. Also go down here to its position and set its Y position to 24. Alright, now we can get into actually creating the effect. There's some basic settings we'll immediately want to change. First, we want to up the amount of particles that can be spawned to 256. Second, we want each of these particles to have a lifetime of 3.5, which means they'll exist for 3.5 seconds before being reset. Then we want to make each particle actually visible. To do this, we need to go under Draw Passes and add in an initial pass. Each pass represents a new mesh to draw out the particle's coordinates. We just want a basic quad mesh for now. We'll give it a new standard material and then tweak some of its settings a bit. First, under Transparency, we want to use the alpha mode. This lets parts of the particle be transparent, which we'll need to make the particle appear circular. Then we want to go under Shading and set our particles to be unshaded. In some cases you want particles to have shading. For a snow effect, it tends to look pretty bad. Under Vertex Color, we want to enable Use as Albedo. This will allow us to dynamically change the colors of our particles later on. Under Billboard, we want to enable billboarding. This makes the particle always face towards us. And we want to enable Keep Scale, which will let us change the scale of the particle later on. Close all of the open tabs in the material and open up Albedo. Finally, we can make this quad actually resemble snow. In Texture, create a new Gradient Texture 2D. Go to Fill, set the Fill mode to Radial, and set From to 0.5, 0.5. This creates a circle, but the gradient isn't quite right. So, under Gradient, let's first flip the order of these colors so that it's black towards the end. Then set the black to a dark gray, and set its alpha all the way down to 0. Let's move it back by about a third. Then let's move the white forward by about a third as well. This should be about done. With the material finished, we can close the Draw Passes tab and move on to the particle's behavior. The behavior of the particle is determined by this process material. At the moment, it isn't assigned. Let's give it a new particle process material. Now the particles are spawning, but they look a little weird. What's happening here is that they're continuously spawning on top of each other and then being pulled down by gravity, creating this line of particles. To resolve this, we need to go into the process material, under the Spawn tab, and change some of its parameters. First, the spawn position. We want to change the spawn shape to be a box, which immediately spreads the particles out a little bit. Then we want to set the box's extents to 16 by 2 by 16. This is the shape we'll be using for the rest of the video, although feel free to experiment with it a little. Another problem with spawning that you might have noticed is that the particles start out with no downward velocity. This looks unnatural, but we can fix it in the Spawn Velocity tab. First, set the direction to 0, -1, 0. Then, set the initial velocity to range from 3 to 6. Now, particle process materials have a lot of parameters like these, which allow you to set a minimum and maximum value. In all of these, the particles will spawn with a random value from within this range. Alright, now that we have the particles spawning correctly, we get to decide on the specific settings on how we want the particles to move and change over time. First, we're going to change the acceleration settings. I'm immediately going to lower gravity a little bit. I think I'll change it from -9.8 to about -5.5. 9.8 is about the gravity on Earth, but because of the wind, snow tends to fall a little slower. Next, I want to add in some radial acceleration. Now, radial acceleration is kind of weird. As you can see, if we add radial acceleration to this basic particle spawner, the particles begin circling back and forth, hence the term radial. If we set our snow's radial acceleration to range from -4 to 4, this creates the effect of wind pulling up or pushing down on the particles. The next kind of acceleration we want to add is tangential acceleration. If we add this to a basic particle spawner, it causes the particles to drift randomly towards the sides. Again, if we set our snow's tangential acceleration to, let's say, -8 to 8 this time, then we get a wind-like effect where the snow blows off in a random direction. Finally, with all these accelerations combined, the snow might seem like it's going a little too fast. So we're going to add a little damping, which just causes the snow to slow down over time. I'll have the damping range from 0 to 4. Next, we're going to change some of its display parameters. First, we'll change the particle's scale. It'll initially range from 0.5 to 1. Then we want to add in a scale curve. What this allows us to do is change the particle scale over time. In our case, we want the particles to start out at 0, increase to 1, and then slowly decrease to about 0.5. Finally, we'll change the color a bit. The initial color is fine, but it could be a little darker. Then the color ramp, like the scale ramp, allows us to change the particle's color over time, except this time according to a gradient. So I'll create a new gradient, make the first half white, and then have it transition to fully transparent. So this is the final particle effect. There's one last bug we need to work out. As you can see, if we look from certain angles, the particles all seem to disappear at once. To solve this, go to the upper toolbar and under the GPU Particles 3D tab, press Generate AABB. After this finishes loading, Godot will know where the particles are visible and shouldn't accidentally call them from view anymore. So, from this video, I hope you learned how to create a snow particle effect, but more importantly, what these different settings in the particle effects do, so you can create your own particle effects with whatever specific parameters you want. Let's go back to the demo scene, and personally, I like this effect, but it is a little simple. Depending on the art style you're going for, it might not be what you want. For example, you could change the quad mesh to display a snowflake texture, or you could change it to be a sphere. It really depends on what look you're going for. Hopefully from this video you've gotten the tools to create whatever sort of snowfall effect you want. As I mentioned before, links to basically everything are down in the description, so make sure to look there. I hope you have a great Christmas and happy holidays, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye!